We're back for your ears only. I'm David Alpern.
I'm Eddie Robinson with this quote from the news. We're used to taking cover by now, one way or another. That was insurance agent Bill Gent of Harrisburg, Illinois, one of the many towns smashed by a series of violent tornadoes that battered through the South and Midwest, killing scores and injuring many, many more. Now this.
President Obama once said he wants everybody in America to go to college. What a snob. Well, I understand why he wants you to go to college. He wants to remake you in his image.
Leave aside the fact that Rick Santorum has an undergraduate degree from Penn State, an MBA from Pitt, and also graduated from the Dickinson School of Law, later marrying a woman with nursing and law degrees of her own. The problem with college these days is not snobs, but jobs. And the debate is whether higher education should be more about higher-paying vocation. In the state of Massachusetts, for example, home to Harvard, MIT, and a bumper crop of other campuses, large and small, there are, by one account, 119,600 jobs employers can't fill because applicants don't have the right skills.
And no less an authority than U.S. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan last month reported that more and more graduates of four-year schools are now going to community colleges to get training for real jobs. Boston Globe contributor Jon Marcus wrote about the snob job crunch for a special education edition of the paper's Sunday magazine on newsstands this weekend and at bostonglobe.com/magazine. And he's on the line with us now for your ears only. Jon, welcome to our program.
Thanks for having me.
Your piece starts with the story of a guy whose college campus is actually a jet fighter engine factory. What is he learning, who's paying, and what are the job prospects after he's graduated?
Well, it's an interesting experiment between a community college in the North Shore of Boston and General Electric, which runs an aircraft engine facility, from which a number of its most experienced machinists are about to retire. So the college has gotten together with GE, which is paying these students to work in the plant during the day and then study the kinds of things they need to know for advanced machining, and that includes really very high-end math and engineering.
What other kinds of corporations in the state and how many have mutual assistance deals with community colleges to build the specific skills they need?
A few, but not enough. Verizon and other companies like that work with community colleges in Massachusetts and in other states to try to produce the kinds of workers that they need. It's not a problem only in Massachusetts. This is a national issue. The president mentioned it in his State of the Union address. By some accounts, there are almost 4 million unfilled jobs in the middle of an economic downturn that continues to produce high unemployment. And the reason for this is, according to employers, that they can't find workers with the skills they need.
How have the community colleges come up to these corporate challenges with what sorts of curricular and learning arrangements?
Well, community colleges in places like Massachusetts, which, as you mentioned, has a very well-known higher education infrastructure. Community colleges here and around the country are sort of the poor stepchildren of higher education. And they've been facing budget cuts or flat budgets at the same time as their enrollment has been skyrocketing. And their enrollment is going up because people do recognize that they can get very specific technical job skills. But for the most part, community colleges are really struggling to do what they do already without taking on these additional burdens. The quote that you mentioned from the Education Secretary, what he was saying was that people are going to community colleges because they've finished four-year universities without job skills. And I sat in the room and watched these people sort of slapping their foreheads thinking, why don't people graduating from four-year universities already have job skills? So somewhere there's an issue of syncing up graduate skills with workforce needs.
Aren't some businesses, though, looking for more intellectually capable person power, for inventive approaches to website and app designs, video games, new investment instruments to bring down the world's economy again, the kind of thing that liberal arts colleges have always prided themselves on?
Yes, and that's the university's response, that when you actually ask employers what they want and you kind of pin them down on the answer, what they say is that they want things like creative thinking and communication skills, which are the kinds of things that liberal arts colleges and universities provide. So there's a national campaign that actually involves some businesses along with colleges and universities called Liberal Education for America's Promise, which is promoting the idea that liberal arts education is just as important to the workforce as specific technical skills.
And what sort of response are we getting from the traditional college campuses, which generally don't like to see themselves as glorified and ungodly expensive trade schools?
That's true. Words like workforce skills are not very popular at faculty meetings, and in fact, these universities and colleges take one of the frustrations of employers is that they take forever to, for example, design a new program in IT. And in places like Massachusetts, which are very heavily dependent on technology companies, these companies are growing so quickly they don't have a year and a half to wait to help plan a program, to wait for a faculty committee to approve it and an accrediting agency to approve it. And so the universities do take quite a long time to implement these kinds of programs. They're getting faster, and they're also beginning to do such things as requiring internships and real-world case studies to give their students some hands-on actual experience before they graduate.
The Boston Globe magazine, with your article, also carries an excerpt from the new book by Columbia professor Andrew Delbanco on more traditional higher education. The headline is 3 Reasons Why College Still Matters. What's the first?
Well, the first one is precisely what we've been discussing, is that there is a premium, an economic premium to having a university degree. The more education you have, the more money you make. Some economists have begun to point out that premium works 2 ways. Some people spend a great deal of money on their higher educations and are overqualified for jobs that don't exist. It's the old joke about the English majors who are delivering pizza because they have an advanced degree that costs them quite a lot of money, but no one in the workforce wants them.
And the second reason is political, the importance of an informed citizenry. But the third is, Delbanco admits, more personal, selfish, emotional. Talk about that.
Well, there are lots of qualities that come from attending a university or college, and that go beyond the purely economic. It is important to have an educated citizenry. It is important to have the kind of quality of life that a higher education provides. The problem is it's not just employers these days, it's families, it's parents and students themselves who want to know what the return on investment is, and society wants to know what the return on investment is for the enormous amount of money we invest in higher education. And so that's really, I think, what's going on out there. This whole issue relates to something you mentioned at the top, which is that it's about the question of what is higher education. Is it about knowledge or vocation?
Boston Globe contributor Jon Marcus wrote about college and jobs for a special education edition of the paper's Sunday magazine on newsstands this weekend and at bostonglobe.com/magazine.
Quote from the news: born out of arrogance or out of paranoia or out of both, this kind of obsession that they're masters of the universe. That was New Jersey Governor Chris Christie on New York police monitoring of Muslims across the tri-state area.
Next, to stop school shooters, a psychologist and therapist for your ears only.